Hello and welcome to the Shack News Chattycast, the podcast that literally just now woke up from its E3 coma. I'm your host, Steve Watts. With me this week is not Brian Carr. He is still out, I guess, lounging in Chicago or something. Today's guests, returning after a full week at E3 with me, are David Craddock.
Hello.
And Cassidy Moser.
I'm not awake yet either. I don't.
No,
It's
still in a coma.
so. Still working on it.
I think Cassidy probably got the least sleep of all of us, because we'd all be like, well, I'm going to write and go to bed, and you're like, I'm going to write and then go meet people. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Why would you do that to yourself?
He's one of
I
those
had, I had too many.
You're just friends
I
with
had
too many people.
I know. It's
You're
bad.
a social butterfly. Unlike us hermits, that we're like, I'm going to go eat burgers in my room. Anyway.
No.
So every week we pick a big topic, post about it in the chatty, and then we talk about it in detail with your comments. This week, if you didn't catch on yet, is E3, and as such, the E3 stuff has wrapped up. We are debriefing from the E3. The whole topic is going to be devoted to E3 from beginning to end, and yeah, that's basically it.
You can call it debriefing.
Debrief,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's almost a portmanteau.
These are the quality jokes I'm going to bring to the table today, guys. I don't...
So beginning to end, E3 wall-to-wall coverage. This is sort of our post-mortem / debrief / whatever you want to call it from three people that were actually there. But first, we're going to talk about what we've been playing, and we can talk about what we played at the show in the actual segment. But I kind of want to hear, like, what was your plane ride game, or you're finally got home and I just want to relax with a game? Like, what was that for you? So, Cass, you first.
Well, usually when I come back from something like that, I need time to wind down. Something that's going to kind of calm me, soothe my nerves. So I played Doom.
Yeah, the most calming,
eventually.
the most relaxing game that there is.
That's the idea. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
played
makes
some
sense.
Doom.
Are you through Doom?
No, that was part of it. I wanted to try and plow through it and beat it, but no, I didn't.
Yeah, I think I'm on like stage 11, and David said there are 13.
Yeah.
So I'm getting close.
There you go.
I keep confronting things that I'm like, this has to be the last thing, and then it's like, no.
Right.
It is not. So yeah. Have you dipped it all into the multiplayer or snap map, or are you still plowing through the single player?
Just single player right now. I canceled my PS Plus subscription a few months ago because I had moved, and so I was anyway.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
check it
excellent
out.
part about it anyway. So,
Yeah.
And it doesn't exist. That's the way I play Doom. Single player only. Multiplayer, huh? I never...
Well, they're issuing updates. That was part of the news that we got from E3, is that they're doing more multiplayer stuff. So maybe by the end of the year, when Game of the Year time comes around, the multiplayer will be, something different than it was at launch.
Yeah.
You never know. I'm choosing to be optimistic.
I think too many things like you've got too many things like Overwatch and Call of Duty later this year and Battlefield and stuff. I don't see it picking up again.
Yeah, I doubt it. I mean, if a multiplayer game doesn't basically immediately snag people, they're kind of lost forever. So
exactly. In fact, I can't even think of a time when a game came out and didn't get its multiplayer going until way later.
Well,
Maybe,
Evolve really. No, I'm kidding. Evolve failed.
Yeah. I saw that game at Target the other day and was like, oh, I remember you. It's like
I got that game. This is terrible because it happened again with Star Wars Battlefront. Like, there are games that I will put on my Amazon wish list, and then when it comes time to buy me a gift, people will be like, what should I get you? And I'm like, oh, just look at my Amazon wish list, because stuff that's on there is always fine. And I end up getting games like Evolve or Star Wars Battlefront, and then just not playing them until well after there's no multiplayer community. So if I ever do play either of those games, there will be no one playing. It'll be like, you found one other player, one guy.
That sucks.
So
that sucks. Yeah, it's tough, but you know what?
You turned a little robot-y there for a second for me.
That's good for.
Uh-oh.
The hotel is
The hotel internet. Cass is not in her usual podcasting spot. I'll go to David while
That's
I
fine.
guess
I'm gonna
Cass
try a
jiggles
different one.
knobs or whatever. David, what were you playing post E3?
Well, Steve, like Cassidy, I also prefer to come back from long trips and unwind with the sauna equivalent of a video game. So I played Dark Souls 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys went from a very stressful situation to Doom and Dark Souls.
Dark Souls 3. Yeah, I think I mentioned the last time I was on a couple weeks ago that I'm a huge Dark Souls fan, but I kind of bounced off 3 initially for a number of reasons, but I want to finish it at least once, so I'm going back to it. I started another character. One of those deals where a group of people and I said, hey, let's create characters and only use them when we play together. And I was like, sure. And I ended up enjoying my build so much that I'm like, screw you guys. And I've just kind of like marched on to the end of the game. And it's fun, and I'm still enjoying it. And otherwise, I've been kind of going through video game detox, which is a habit of mine after E3, whether I cover it or not. Like on the plane ride home, my games of choice were audiobook app and Dramamine to sleep and not.
Yeah, those are good choices.
Yes.
Yeah, I like how you guys had like a narrative tie-in with E3 to explain your game choices. On the way home, I mostly played Pocket Card Jockey and the Mario and Luigi Paper Mario mashup game.
Yeah.
Paper Jam. That's it. It seems fine. I haven't gotten very far in it, but mostly I was like betting on my fake ponies. But here's my attempt to narratively justify my game choice after I got home. After seeing the best that the industry has to offer, I decided now is the time to see the worst. So I played Mighty Number 9.
That's right.
Bird. The actual story behind that is Deep Silver had told us, we might be able to get you a copy before E3, so you can play it before you leave, and then you'll have your review written. They had very limited quantities or something, so that didn't work out. And then at E3, I asked, hey, what's the deal with review copies? And they just gave me one. And so as soon as I got back, I was like, okay, well, I need to crack into this to, be done with it in any kind of reasonable time frame. My review is up on the site now, and it is not very good. We gave it a 5, which is,
Mediocre.
Mediocre, yeah. Like a 5 on a lot of scales is like an utter failure because they use like a school-like grading system, where it's like anything below a 60 is like, nope, this is shit.
Yeah.
The Shack News scale, on the Shack News scale, a 5 is like completely average, fine, mediocre, bland, neutral, like whatever synonyms you can think of for like it's a video game and it functions and it's fine. It has some good ideas. It also has some kind of poor execution of old ideas. And I think really
I think that's kind of the consensus, though. Honestly, is it seems like it's mediocre, but people are, justifiably pissed off about the way that it released.
Yeah, I mean, like the problem with the rollout of this, and I tried not to let it, influence my review because I didn't back the game. I don't care. Like I don't back games in general. But the way that it was sort of sold to people, I don't want to use the word scam, but I can see why people would kind of feel like it was a scam. Like,
oh yeah,
it felt like they got taken, by this wonderful narrative that the Kickstarter sort of portrayed, and then you get this thing, and it's like, oh, this isn't like the second coming of Mega Man. This is like a subpar Mega Man game.
Right.
It's fine. It doesn't play like a Mega Man game, which is something I tried to sort of mention in my review. Because if you play it like a Mega Man game, it's going to be frustrating and boring, which is weird that they made this thing that is obviously an homage and a callback to classic Mega Man, but it's not meant to be played that way. It's meant to be played very quickly. You're meant to be like dashing constantly because the whole mechanic is you shoot, dash through an enemy, shoot, dash through an enemy. So if you play it like that, I actually like genuinely had fun sometimes. But not all the time, and it's just kind of ugly, and it's got some pretty serious issues.
Did it make you cry like an anime fan on prom night?
It didn't. No, it made me yell like, I don't know, some other kind of nerd stereotype. But Yeah, there are definitely bosses in that thing, especially before you take down your first boss. Every Mega Man game has, like there's a boss that is kind of the consensus pick for this is the one that's easy to take down. Um, with
The
with
Glass Joe,
with a
if you will.
default weapon. Um,
Sure.
every Mega Man game has to have that because that's how the rock paper scissors thing starts rolling. This one I don't know which one that is. I was just kind of jumping around to different stages, and whichever one I got the furthest in, I think the lightning one, Dynatron, I think her name is, was the first one that I beat. Sheer luck, like I have no idea. I was just going left to right, you know. But the thing is that when you beat a boss, and I'm already devoting like way more time to this than I should, but when you beat a boss, it's this week's big release. When you beat a boss, they not only give you the weapon that's used against the enemy, and they kind of give you advice on the next enemy in the sequence, so you don't actually need like a boss list to know which order to take them. They also show up in the stage and like sort of disable one of the hazards. And the ice stage and the fire stage specifically, which are the two leftmost ones, so the two that I tried first, are just like frustrating as hell if you don't have the boss powers to help disable some of the traps. So I was going through one, not realizing that like, oh, this is a game that's meant to be like dash dash dash, two, not having powers to make those stages easier, and so my first couple of hours with that game was just like, this is awful. Like, it made a really terrible first impression. And I said in my review, it makes an abysmal first impression because you don't know how to take it. But once you sort of get rolling, it's like, oh, okay, like I get it now, and it's a little more fun, but it's still never, wowed me. Yeah. So I have the review up. You can go read that. I also have a guide up for the final boss, because back when I owned a Mega Man site, I did that pretty frequently. Basically made guides on the boss patterns, like here's how you recognize which attack they're about to do and how to dodge it and stuff.
So are you a Mega Man 2 or a Mega Man 3 guy?
Mega Man 3 was like my first love,
Okay.
because I think that was actually my first Mega Man game. Like, I objectively recognize that Mega Man 2 is probably like the better made game, but nostalgia wise,
It seems like
like
the divide.
the one that made me like kind of fall in love with the series is Mega Man.
Here's the thing: Mega Man 2 is great, but that game is broken. Fun broken.
Oh yeah, it is. Like, you get the Metal Blade, and just the rest of the game is easy.
Yes.
I don't know why they decided we're gonna abandon the rock paper scissors thing. We're gonna have rock paper scissors and a flamethrower, and if you can beat the flamethrower guy, you just win everything. Yeah, it was weird. I have this sort of theory that like the second and fifth games in each Mega Man series are like the standout best ones. So Mega Man 2 and Mega Man 5, even though Mega Man 5 is when they were getting really criticized for like being generic, it's a really well-made game. And Mega Man X2, Mega Man X5, and on and on. Anyway, I don't have to go on and on about Mega Man Esoteria because I did that for years of my life. I think the world has had enough of that for me. So let's move on to E3 discussions. We're going to talk all about E3. And like I said, we're going to talk about the press conferences because we never really talked about that on our live shows. We all sort of got in on Sunday. We were all settling into our hotel as the first press conferences started to roll out. So should we take them in order? Should we just name best and worst? Who wants to?
Let's go in order. Because I have thoughts on
order.
each.
And we'll give little insights of our own E3 experiences. In order, the first one was EA. We were outside of our rooms. We hadn't checked in yet, so we were like in the hotel lobby at a table. And that one was real bad.
Yeah.
That was the first one.
I don't even remember it. It was so bland. I don't remember it.
It was the first one that I think all of us were sitting at the table together, looking at each other like, "Wow, like is this like?" It was setting a real bad tone for the show.
It was,
it was awful. It was awful.
Yeah.
I think the main criticism of it that I've heard from everywhere, and that I think we criticized too, somewhere or other, or maybe just to each other, is that they didn't show like new games.
No, they didn't.
They talked about games that are coming sometime in the nebulous future, but it was very like, we're definitely working on new Star Wars games, guys. We are. That's coming.
Yeah, they
Telling
did
ya.
the same thing that they did like 2 years ago, where they show everybody working at their workstations on their Wacom tablets and
Yeah.
talking about how cool and transformative Star Wars and Mass Effect are, and it's like, okay,
got-
like Mass
we
Effect
got-
is out in less than a year, and we still know nothing about it.
We got maybe less than 5 seconds each of actual Star Wars footage and actual Mass Effect footage, and
Yeah, and it was a dude standing in like Mos Eisley. It's like,
yeah, I mean it was funny because like on the prediction show the prior week, you and I had a disagreement about which one they would lean harder into.
yeah.
I think I said they would lean harder into Star Wars. You said they would lean harder into Mass Effect, and the actual answer was neither one.
We both lost.
To just kind of abandon them both in a weird way.
Yeah, it was really bad.
It was like the worst possible of all timelines. But they did show other things. They showed, Battlefield.
Sports.
They showed sports. They always show sports. I think also the tone of that conference was a little weird because they were. I think it's affected people who were actually in the audience more than us watching it on a stream. But they were tossing it back and forth between England and LA in this kind of awkward way, and so there would be a little bit of momentum in one location, and they're like, "And back to you,"
Yeah.
It was bizarre. I don't know if they repeat that. I've heard the theory that they did that because they wanted audible excitement over FIFA, and holding the event in America there wouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, probably. Like, if it's anything like the Battlefield 1 reveal event, where I'm about 90% sure they had plants in the audience, like, yeah, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
I mean, almost certainly. They always do that. The people cheering the loudest. So, do we really need to say anything else about EA? That was EA. It was not great. I think we can move on to the next one. The next one was Bethesda that evening.
Now, speaking of plants, my favorite part of
speaking
Bethesda
of plants,
was
the
Bethesda.
streaming girl.
It was Bethesda girl. I'm still worried about her. I don't think her voice has recovered yet, even a week after. She was my favorite part of that conference.
I don't know what you guys' experience with watching this conference was. I was standing outside in a parking lot. It was a weird thing. they had I mean, like, who cares how the press gets treated? Like, that's not really the story here, and I don't want to make it a big thing. But like the just for like a fun little bit of backstory, the press line and the public line sort of merged into one, and so there was confusion over like getting in. And by the time I got in, it had just barely filled up, and so they're like, okay, all remaining press, you can stand outside in this parking lot and watch it on this screen. And so I was standing in a parking lot for the full, hour-long presentation. And I came in like a little bit late to Quake Champions, which was the first thing they showed off. They kicked it off with Quake Champions.
Which,
so
not
basically,
surprised that they
when I got in, I
announced
saw
that,
I saw the title screen for Quake Champions. Is what I saw. I came in and I was like, oh, they announced a Quake game. All right.
I'm not surprised that they announced that, but I am surprised they announced it so soon.
Yeah, same here. It's it's inevitable, right? They successfully revived Wolfenstein. They moved on to Doom. The last trifecta is Quake. But like Cassidy, I'm surprised it happened this year. Maybe I kind of had 2017 pegged for an announcement, if nothing else.
Yeah, it was.
I was waiting for Wolfenstein 2 announcement.
Yeah, it was weird. Bethesda, I thought they had a solid presentation. At the same time, I don't think they had any big, mind blowers. Prey 2. I mean, last year Fallout 4 was like the huge thing, and this year they didn't have anything quite like that. Dishonored, I know, has a very passionate fan base, some of which are on our staff. I never got into Dishonored, and maybe if I did, I would like be more excited about their conference. But they showed Prey 2 or Prey or
just Prey.
Just Prey. It's a total reboot. It looks weird and has nothing to do with Prey. And the rest of the announcements were sort of like things that we already knew due to leaks and stuff, like the Skyrim remastered and.
Well, see, that's the running theme of all the conferences, I feel like, except for maybe
this year especially. Yeah. So Skyrim remastered was spoiled. Nuka World was spoiled. A couple of the other Fallout expansions hadn't been spoiled, but they aren't like the big story ones either. Prey.
Just kind of a bummer.
More stuff that we knew about, and they finished up with a big long look at Dishonored. I kind of like that style though. Like not going into, I love the Bethesda conference or whatever, but I like Bethesda's style of conference where they're like they end with a solid 20 to 30 minute just chunk of like, here's our big thing this year, and we're going to show it in a lot of detail.
It is nice.
I kind of like that. I kind of wish other people would do that, because so many conferences are like, hit this, and trying to overwhelm you with quantity.
It's like Ubisoft does that really bad. They're like, hey, here's 10 minutes of this.
Yeah, here's 2 minutes of Just Dance.
We'll talk about that.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that. I have comments about Just Dance.
Boy.
But first we have to get to Microsoft, I believe. Microsoft was Tuesday morning. And again, we were covering from our rooms. Microsoft just felt kind of bleh, to me.
It was unremarkable.
Yeah. What were the big surprises of Microsoft? See, this is how bland it was. What were the big surprises of Microsoft?
There weren't any. That entire conference leaked before it was out.
That's true. It was just one giant leak fest, and I imagine it'd be a little more exciting if it hadn't been leaked. Like, oh, Dead Rising 4, that's awesome, but we all knew.
I liked. What do I want to say here? I found the Microsoft press conference interesting. I won't say I liked it, but I found it interesting because I thought it shed a lot of light on their strategy going forward, and I don't know that it's going to be sustainable.
I don't know if it's a great idea. I mean, like the strategy thing coming out of Microsoft was, oh hey, they announced 2 new consoles at the same conference, which sounds insane. Like,
also talking out of buying either one, because to me the most interesting takeaway from that press conference was, hey, going forward, all of our first-party games, which have always been kind of the heavy hitters on Xbox, will launch on PC and Xbox simultaneously. And I'm thinking, great, I have a gaming PC, so what you're telling me is there's no reason to buy your box. Okay, cool. I guess that's fine. But
I mean, it goes one step further than that. Like, that's a good point. Like, if you own a PC, or if you're comfortable, playing on a PC, then they're like, hey, you don't need to buy our box. But also, if you were thinking about buying our box, 1, don't, because there's a better one coming out this fall, and 2, maybe don't buy that one either, because there's an even better one coming out next fall.
It is.
The Xbox ecosystem is the star, not the Xbox box, but the ecosystem. And I feel like, unless they move to an iPhone model where, Project Scorpio is one in a new sequence of box upgrades coming, great. But this could also be their last one, because they could very well just transfer everything over to
Xbox is the name for their ecosystem.
Yeah, that's just.
I mean, the one advantage if you are a PC player or whatever, say you have a PC and you're like, okay, I'm gonna buy these games, comfortable in the knowledge that once the Xbox drops in price, if I would rather play some games on Xbox, I already own them on Xbox, so I'll immediately just have a library on my Xbox. Like, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know how many people that's going to be.
It's all.
Uh-oh, robot cast.
Oh no, Cass has been taken over by a robot again. Sorry,
Damn it.
Go ahead.
Am I all right now?
Yes.
Are you good now? You can hear me? Good. Okay. No, it was just the most confusing marketing pitch, and it's not only was it super confusing, it was also average consumer.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
Oh, hotel internet. Yeah, we caught most of that. Anyway. I don't know how much attention we need to give to Microsoft, because I want to have time for the actual E3 week.
Well, I also say there are still some unanswered questions to me. Okay, Halo 6 launches. I get it for PC. You get it for Xbox. There's going to be crossplay. Am I going to be circle strafing around you with my keyboard and mouse?
I think later in the week I asked that about Halo Wars, because obviously RTS is one of those genres that the input difference is enormous.
Yes.
And they sort of hedged on it a little. They're like, well, yeah. But yeah, I don't know exactly how they pull that off.
Yeah.
So a lot remains to be seen. Ubisoft. The one thing I have to say about the Just Dance presentation, Ubisoft was, fine. It was Ubisoft. But the thing that I thought was funny / sad, but funny, in the way that they dealt with it was like they chose that moment to have their statement about the victims of the shooting.
Exactly.
And the shooting is not funny. I'm not laughing at the shooting, but it was so weird because like
No, and so they opened with that, which was like this
which is
weird
like the
Sesame
craziest like
Street
most.
Wizard of Oz.
It was the most French thing you've ever seen. Like,
Ugh, yeah, they go straight to that. I have no problem with them acknowledging it, but then right after that,
I mean, I
we
actually
go straight.
I thought
Well,
Aisha Tyler's like statement, like the words that they scripted for her to say, were like actually very respectful and good. Like it was a nice, it was a nice statement. But she was flanked by like a paper mache giraffe, and it just kind of undermined it and looked a little silly.
Well, and then they pivoted straight to South Park, where they're making gay jokes. I'm like,
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird optics for the order of events there. I mean, Ubisoft. I thought like everybody kind of tried to make a statement. I don't know if EA did, but
no, they didn't.
But you know, Bethesda very prominently was like wearing the rainbow ribbons. Ubisoft said something. Microsoft said something. I actually thought Sony's was. I mean, not that there's like a winner of this, but I thought that the way that Sony dealt with it was very elegant, and that might just be that they were in an elegant space with like an orchestra, you know. And
Nintendo's was nice too.
And Sean Layton, you know, he's an eloquent man. He stated it in a very nice way. But yeah, that was sort of the pall sort of hanging over the whole event was how these different publishers were reacting to the news of the shooting. But that's not that relevant to video games, and we should get on to non-depressing topics. So what did Ubisoft show? They started with Just Dance. They showed South Park. They did a nice, like a pretty good chunk of South Park, showing South Park. And they, I think, as they like to do, they wheeled out, you know, Trey and Matt, who I'm pretty sure just refused to like follow a script. They just like they probably like have in mind we need to hit, you know, X, Y, and Z talking points, and Trey and Matt are like, yeah, whatever. We'll come and sit on your dumb couch and make jokes, but we're not gonna like do the marketing message thing.
Which I kind of appreciate because that's one of the undercurrents of South Park is, you know, corporatism is dumb, so let's laugh at it and just flaunt it. And they carry through that in every aspect of their lives.
And they are, you know, beholden to this corporate thing because they're making a game, and you can't do that without some structure. But, you know, they are at least like keeping that attitude consistent for their brand.
Oh, the creators of yeah.
Let's see. Also, I don't know if this is actually what the order was, but they actually did that, you know, kind of sit down and have an interview style thing again with Geordie LaForge / Reading Rainbow, to present the Star Trek VR experience.
Say his name, Steve. What is that man's name?
I don't know his name. It's Reading Rainbow to me. That's all I know.
It's LeVar Burton.
LeVar Burton. That's it. I knew I would know once I heard it, but. Reading Rainbow / you know, eyeglasses guy. But he came out to talk about the Star Trek VR thing after they showed like a hodgepodge of different Star Trek iteration personalities playing it together. It was what was it? It was the lady that plays Seven of Nine and Carl Urban and Reading Rainbow and somebody else.
Reading Rainbow.
Yeah, I don't know Seven of Nine's name either.
Gary something. I don't know.
Sorry, Trekkies.
I don't even know who it is, so you're fine.
Anyway, yeah, so I kind of like that little mini interview style. I know it's like the most corporate thing possible, but they got people who seem, you know, passionate and fun and casual about their own things. So that was kind of cool.
I mean, it's a nice way to just get all your talking points out of the way, and
you
know, it feels a little more personal.
Yeah. Let's see. They showed Watch Dogs as well, which I've heard said, and I kind of agree with, would be way more interesting if you didn't have guns. If they just committed, you know, Mirror's Edge Catalyst level to it, and they're just like, no, you need to figure your way out of this stuff with hacking.
Yeah, I want a Matrix sandbox without the bullet and bullet time stuff. Like that would be much more interesting to me than Watch Dogs.
Because there's definitely a turn in that Watch Dogs demo that we got that it's like, oh, it's Splinter Cell now. Like it just, or like The Division, or like it's sort of all of Ubisoft's shooters. Sort of, they're using the same engine. They look very similar. They sort of just blend together after a while. And it's like, oh wait, Watch Dogs became this other thing too.
I just can't. I can't stand how douchey those characters seem.
They are. They are part of.
It's so
They are
bad.
part of this hacking collective. It's like a douchier version of Anonymous.
It's like if Fox News decided to write characters based on millennials. Like that's just kind of what it comes across to me. It's terrible.
We need to have you write the review so that you can use that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's like Fox News. I said Fox News, which might be accurate, but
I mean,
Fox News.
yeah, I don't know how much there is to say about Watch Dogs. It looks like there's some more gadgetry involved, but also, guns. Looks pretty. Ghost Recon, that's the one I was trying to think of. I was like, what's the last thing they showed?
that game looks so free.
I'm sure that Ubisoft actually showed a bunch of things. It was a pretty long conference, but most of them do not stand out to us. No laser tag this year.
Just to talk a little inside baseball, I think a lot of the reasons I don't remember a lot of the beats of these conferences is because we were frantically writing articles the whole time.
That's true, yeah.
There's that too.
I'm sitting there.
Between the three of us, we remember a fair bit, but the way that we handle stories during E3, like we have a batting order, and as stories pop up, it's just like, okay, you're next up, grab this, and so that person is going to be busy for 10 to 15 minutes while the next person handles the next thing. So yeah, if we have gaps in our knowledge, that's why. Finally, oh wait, Ghost Recon. We should talk about Ghost Recon first. I was going to move on to Sony.
Should we?
Should we? I don't know. I mean, it sounded like you had something to say, but maybe it was that it looks super boring.
It looks super.
It looks super boring.
Oh
no, Cass.
Was when they... Oh, my robot again.
You cut out a little bit. We'll get it back.
It does look kind of unremarkable, though.
It looks just like what I was saying about Ubisoft shooters blending together. It looks like the prime example of that. This is, you could call it Ubisoft Shooter 2016. You know, and it would be like, oh, okay.
They very literally have a template that
tower
they
climbing.
iterate on.
Yeah, it's that, like Pastor said, it's a template at this point, and that's when games start to really get boring. I don't know, Ubisoft, you gotta refresh your engine and do something new. We can't climb towers forever.
Favorite part of that conference was when they were like, "Oh, you drink energy drinks now, but what if you did cocaine?" Whoa, dog!
What if?
Speaking of which, presenting Mr. Caffeine. Let's bring him out, guys.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I guess. I mean,
speaking of being all coked up, anyway, let's move on to Sony. Last but not least, I want to reserve a solid, 20-ish minutes to talking about our actual experiences at the show. But Sony kicked it off with God of War. Yes. Actually, they kicked it off with their kick-ass orchestra. I was actually at Sony, so that was pretty cool. They kicked it off with this orchestra playing God of War music, which we didn't know was God of War music until it came on. Or as some people are calling it, Dad of War. Kratos has a son now. We gave him the best dad award from Shack News. That looked like a cool direction for the character. I'll have to remain judgment until we see how it all sorts out in the final estimation. But the things that I heard Cory Barlog saying at the presentation, they gave sort of a private theater presentation where they talked in a little more detail about things. He basically said, like, if the first 3 God of War games, or 4, whatever, were about this just rage monster hulking out all the time, this series is supposed to be about, or this game, whatever, is supposed to be about him trying to put the genie back in the bottle, like trying to control all that in him, presumably because he needs to, like, be a father to this child. And, like, that is not what I would expect. That's, like, a more thoughtful take on parenthood than I would expect from God of War, the series where there was literally a game where you would just stumble across naked ladies and press X to, like, bone them, Like, it's such a brainless series. Thoughts?
Yeah,
it's an interesting change. Sorry, David.
No. I mean, that's basically a summation of my thoughts. So I played the first God of War, and I really liked it. And then 2 came out, and I looked at it and thought, okay, so this is very literally number 2 of these. And you know, copy and paste 3 and PSP games, and I was just like, I had my fill. So
more God of War, yeah.
Yeah, but this direction has me cautiously optimistic because I really like the idea of Steve, as you said, trying to put the genie back in the bottle and take a character that was just, the Hulk, but with these twin blades, and actually make him a character rather than just another video game killing machine. I'm actually, there's obviously going to be action and all that, but I hope that the narrative through line is, trying to pass on lessons to the, the future.
And at least in the demo, the action was very much like there was an element of he was trying to protect his son. Like his son was right there next to the battle, and it's not like he was saying, "Hey, run away." So he may not be a great father, but it was very like, hey, I'm trying to handle this, be safe kind of thing.
But also, I think that could be, and I hope it is, indicative of them using the action to, continue showing rather than telling this narrative construct that they built.
And I like the idea that you're passing on experience to your son.
Yeah.
Like they said, like once you, Barlog said, like, after you get through the bow area, like later on, you'll try to like, tell him something about the bow, and he's like, no, I got this. Like you are actually through the narrative, teaching him. So that's kind of cool. Like we said, we'll have to see how it all shakes out. He did confirm that is his son. I actually asked that directly. If there was a messy divorce or if it's not really his son. Because I noticed that he kept referring to your mother, which sounds like, one, it's not really his son, or two, there was some sort of divorce situation.
Hey, orgy mini games. This was bound to happen.
Yeah, just one of those ladies. It's just a random one of those ladies. I think I'm the only one who feels this way about God of War, because I hear so much praise about it. But have you guys ever gotten the impression that there's a certain weightlessness to Kratos' steps? Whenever he would run in those games, it didn't feel like a foot connecting to the ground. Like it does in some games. It sort of felt like he was floating on top of, these pre-made environments, almost like Final Fantasy VII. That's kind of how it always struck me.
Now that you say it, I would say like. No, I see what you're saying.
Okay, yeah.
Am I gone again?
I'm dying over here. You've been fading here and there.
I got that impression through his jumping. Like when you jump, he pops up so quickly. It's kind of like inflating a balloon and then letting it go. It's just right up there.
So this new engine looks like it has some more. All that was to say, this new engine looks like he has weight. So that kind of makes me happy. Anyway, so other things Sony showed. Let's see. Death Stranding, the weirdest trailer of E3, also a winner of our best trailer award because it got people talking and curious, and that was we're going to roll out Kojima to show his next thing, and it was Norman Reedus clutching a dead baby, and there was oil spills. God knows what that was. I don't think that's a game yet. I think that trailer is just like some vague metaphorical ideas he has of what he wants to say with his next game.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And unless he goes all out, like, full-on Metal Gear Solid 2 with this, I don't think the final product will live up to the, what is this sort of reaction.
What the, I mean, like, that was the trailer that showed up that everybody was like, what the hell did I just watch?
Yeah.
Let's see, what else?
It's just a reborn Silent Hills, that's all that game is. I'd be willing to bet money.
That would make sense.
Let's speak of Resident Evil 7.
Resident Evil 7, yeah, that was part of their VR push. They sort of had a VR, like a series of VR things. For those who were not in the theater, they had just some knowledge. They had like a screen outside the screen where they had extra set dressing, and during the Resident Evil demo, they had like, mannequin bodies popping up in there, and like that part with the bugs crawling out. They had like a bunch of bugs crawling everywhere. Someone in the theater screamed, I think, at the bugs. I mean, like, they're fake bugs on the TV screen, but still. Resident Evil 7, which was something I know David was very excited to play.
Yeah, this is jumping ahead of it, but I did get to play it on Tuesday, the first official day of the show. And everything about that, everything that Capcom did for that just was under this all-encompassing theme. We actually went inside a full-scale model of the plantation house. You went into this, like, the hallways were dirty and dingy and dimly lit, and I was given a choice. Do you want to play it with a controller or using VR? And I chose VR, and this could be the game that sells me on VR. I wouldn't say I'm gung-ho about it, but I've been kind of looking for a proof of concept, and this was it for me, because it was really interesting to just walk around this haunted house, which is a big thing for me. I love Halloween and going haunted housing, and just feel for the first time like I was actually in this virtual world, and it was a lot of fun. It was scary and it was fun for those of us.
Which is what Resident
Did it
Evil
ever make you motion sick? I heard that it made people motion sick.
It didn't, and that's why this is I think a broader conversation for another time. But it didn't bother me, even though I thought it might, because I was actually. So you could move your head to adjust the camera, but for full turns, I was actually using a DualShock. And so I thought that the combination of traditional controls with, the headset on might kind of get to me, but it didn't. I felt fine. I would say the only negative point of using the controller really was that it was kind of immersion breaking, a reminder that I am in fact just playing a game. I'm hoping that the final product will be compatible with Move. I actually have one of those. I don't know why I bought it, but I do have one, and it would be a nice excuse to dust that thing off and see if I can actually further immerse myself in the world, because I think that controller is tailor-made for an experience like that.
Yeah. So what else did they show? They showed boring zombie game
Days
number
Gone.
56. Yeah,
Yep.
Days Gone.
Game of the year 2006.
Everyone everyone in the audience, I think literally everyone in the audience expected The Last of Us to pop up before the title. But it didn't. It's just a zombie game. There's zombies. I don't know. It looks very generic. And I don't know why they chose that as like their big finisher. It's kind of weird.
Because it's new. Like, I would have gone with God of War over that, but it's a new IP.
They gave a release
what was the
date
last
to...
thing Sony Bend made? Siphon Filter? Like, good grief. They
got a release date for The Last Guardian, which has been a long time coming. They had to do that. That's the only way to show the Last Guardian at this point. What else did they show?
I'm done with that game.
I'm
done.
Were we?
Like, I never cared to begin with.
The Lion Bird needs you.
I mean, I'm not a big Team Eco person anyway. Like, Shadow was fine, but it never was my thing. Like, I'm so done with that game.
I think seeing the game come out will be more satisfying than anything that they could do. Like, this game just has to come out. Kind of like Duke Nukem Forever.
Hopefully not like Duke Nukem Forever.
Yeah. But, like, the expectations that are going to be heaped on this thing is ridiculous. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it's by this celebrated developer who's, people still refer to things like Shadow of the Colossus as like, oh, it's this masterpiece, and, I don't know.
Yeah, and it
We're cutting out. I don't know why it keeps doing that to you.
Just
it's letting you get in like a word, and then it cuts you out. Yeah, I know.
Center.
God, Google.
Are we surprised that we didn't see another trailer for Final Fantasy VII Remake? I kind of thought we'd
I'm a little bit surprised, yeah. Or Kingdom Hearts or something.
I expected it. I expected Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
I mean, they showed some other stuff. They showed like Call of Duty. We don't have to talk about all of them. What other, surprising things were sort of on tap? Anybody?
I guess I'm just surprised that this is the point at which Capcom decided. I'm not surprised at the decision to reboot Resident Evil 7. That was kind of after 6. It was do or die. But I guess the most surprising thing for me across the show, the entirety of E3, was the God of War reboot. I'm just interested in it, and I want to see where it goes.
And they showed Detroit Become Human. Well, they showed more of Detroit Become Human because we had seen that before. And yeah, that's a cool trailer because it illustrates the choice motif in those games better than I think they've really illustrated before. Previously, trailers for those games have really illustrated the cinematic aspect, and nowadays it's like, well, kind of every game is is very cinematic. You don't need to accent that anymore. I'm noticing one
David
thing.
Cage he exists in a world where other media doesn't. I feel like it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, I'm noticing one thing that we just completely neglected to mention. Looking back at the calendar, is Sea of Thieves at Microsoft, which I think just kind of had a poor showing at Microsoft. Cass, you actually saw it, but During the press conference, it was this trailer that I could see why that'd be fun to do, but it was not fun to watch. It was watching,
No.
4 or 5 streamers like being confused about what they're supposed to do and figuring it out together. And it's like, that sounds like a fun thing to do with my friends. That does not sound like something I want to do with watch somebody else do.
I hate things that tell me how I will feel about something.
Yeah, it
like that's just how I feel in general. No.
So yeah, that was Sony. I don't think there's much else to say.
I should say though, sorry, Sea of Thieves. I should say looks cool.
Yeah, it does. Like that's what I mean by like it looks like it'll be fun to play, but it was not fun to watch people play. Yeah, Sony they also sort of took the wraps off of some other VR stuff, Batman VR, things like that. They didn't mention the PlayStation Neo at all because they're, I guess, smarter than Microsoft. So yeah, that was
Well,
Sony.
they need to sell PSVR more than Neo right now.
Yeah. Oh, also Microsoft showed Halo Wars, which was Halo Wars. I think we mentioned that very briefly, but I mean, it looks like more Halo Wars. I don't know what to say about that. It's Halo. I liked Halo Wars pretty well.
I was honestly surprised that there were no indie games except.
Yeah, they usually make a point of sort of highlighting a little thing. That was very absent this year.
It's interesting.
Anyway, so
I think it was kind of AAA's time to shine, which I know sounds like a weird thing to say, but I feel like AAA games have kind of been on the decline.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah, so it's like we kind of get into this lineup of, oh yeah, every year we're going to get another Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, maybe a Battlefield, some Ubisoft shooter / tower climber date, So I was actually kind of glad to see interesting and frankly bold new directions for things like Resident Evil and God of War.
Yeah, and it feels like in God of War's case especially, it feels like that's they're showing how they're letting the creators have a vision,
Yeah.
And that's kind of a cool change of pace. It's like we're letting artists say something, but with a budget. Like indie games have been doing that for a long time, but like having a parenthood story like with the God of War budget, I'm curious to see. Although arguably Last of Us was kind of a parenthood fable as well. Although the lesson about parenthood from that game was like sometimes you have to lie to your children. Oh, that's kind of awful.
All right, let's talk about Tuesday morning. Good. It's time for Tuesday morning.
Yes, it is time for Tuesday morning. Let's talk about Tuesday morning.
We haven't talked about Zelda.
Nope. Always got to talk about Zelda. Zelda got our game of show. We should say, based on the passion of mostly David, but also Asif and I liked it. And it was just generating an insane amount of buzz. I saw it got like twice the amount of discussion as the next highest, which was God of War.
Or Battlefield, I think.
Oh, it was Battlefield? Which is weird, because I guess I just drew a blank when it came to Battlefield, because I was like, okay, it's Battlefield. Like, it looks fine.
Yeah, I didn't care.
But anyway, Nintendo didn't have a press conference, which I think the most interesting thing about Zelda generating so much discussion is that Nintendo just avoided the whole press conference thing altogether. Instead, they had a treehouse stream from the show floor. First, they teased Zelda, then they were like, nope, you're going to have to wait an hour. Let's talk about Pokemon.
Yeah.
Which was boring as hell. And then
it was so good.
They're new to saying Pokemon at this point,
Yeah. They didn't even... They eventually, in that stream, talked about some of the new features of this Pokemon game, but they didn't even start with that. They started with, like, here's how Pokemon works. And it was like,
here are the 3 types you can choose.
Why? Why would you do that? We already know all this. Anyway, so that was a weird choice. I wouldn't say that Nintendo had, like, the best production, but they did show, they were teasing out this enormous game that they knew was going to be the thing. So Zelda, they showed in a huge chunk. We've talked a lot about it on the live shows. We don't have to go into a huge amount of detail, but they definitely like went into a lot of detail about Zelda.
Yeah. I'll keep this brief because I have raved about Zelda in written and oral forms, but I was kind of thinking this morning, like, why am I looking forward to that game? Because my E3 demo, it was exciting, but in an I'm playing Zelda right now sort of way.
I'm doing it, guys.
I'm doing it. It's happening. It's real. But I think what I really like I think about Ocarina of Time, and that game is broken into two parts. There's the childhood and the adulthood part, and the adulthood part is like 2/3, and you spend most of that doing temples, like you're doing tasks, you're getting stuff done. But the
the little things that you have to do to access the temple.
Yeah, but the
which also became sort of part of the formula.
Right, but the childhood part is arguably more fun, and it's most of the side quest stuff. Like I'm gonna go fishing, I'm gonna look around for just side mission stuff to do. And Breath of Fire, wow, talk about it.
Zelda Breath of Fire.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild looks to be that. Like you can just. I just want to exist in this world. I'm gonna cook some stuff. I'm gonna go hunting. I'm going to spread wildfires and watch Hyrule burn. It's just gonna be. It looks like a really fun sandbox game, but with Nintendo's golden touch, and I think that's why I'm looking forward to it the most. Just the possibility.
It looks really good. We've talked about it to death. I don't think, and the internet in general has talked about it to death. But the thing that makes it.
Oh no, you're a robot. Now you're cutting out.
We're all dying today.
Okay, there we go.
It's all over. It's all over for all of us.
We're back. Steve's not, but Cassidy and I are here talking about having a great time, right? Yeah. Right. Oh, now Cass is cut out. I don't know if...
I'm cutting out, too. We're all dying.
We're all dying. Well, this is Watch Dogs 2 is happening. We're all getting hacked. Technology's going off.
By a bunch of douchebags with sunglasses.
Oh, Steve's muted. His mic is muted.
Yeah, Steve, you're muted, dog.
There you go. But
I see it jumping.
Yeah.
You're muted and quiet. There we go.
I think Google has decided that we've talked about Zelda too much. That's where it all started to fall.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
It just shut it all down. Since we're all done.
Yeah. Huh.
Oh, man. Well, Steve's unmuting. He's muting. This is a really fascinating show right now.
Yeah. It's a good time.
We need, like, a good, like, technical difficulties card just to throw up.
We do. Yeah. I don't know if we should start or just like forge ahead, talk about some day one stuff. What did you see on day one, Cass?
Day one, my first appointment was with Warner Brothers, so I went and saw Lego Dimensions, Lego Worlds, Batman Dress Up Simulator, and Injustice 2.
So I take it Batman Dress Up Simulator didn't really sell you on VR. You're still a healthy skeptic.
Oh, not at all. I mean, it was cool, but like, no, it wasn't a game. It was a it was cool. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's neat, but
yeah.
I've been muted a bunch of times.
I don't know what's going on. I also saw. I'm just gonna like forge ahead here. I don't really know what else to do. I also saw. So my day was pretty action packed. I got Zelda and Resident Evil right out of the gate, and then by the end of that day, I also got to see Telltale's Batman game, which was kind of interesting because they were upfront and saying, like, this is a Telltale game, which I thought was a really funny thing for them to just say outright. But their approach is we're trying to make Bruce Wayne important, and I think that's the hook, because Bruce Wayne has always been... Yes, it is the Dark Souls podcast. He needs to get his audio back. Yeah, I think that the idea of trying to make Bruce Wayne as interesting as Batman is kind of a cool idea. As a Batman geek, I'm going to play this game because I kind of feel like Telltale games are interchangeable, like Traveling Tales Lego games. Like, you don't really need to play all of them; just play the ones whose properties you're interested in, and that's going to be this one for me, I think.
I like Telltale games. Like, some of them are better than others, but I like them. I enjoy them.
It was almost. Am I back, by the way?
Hey, there he is.
It was almost our booth of the show, Telltale, we should mention.
Yeah.
If Zelda hadn't existed, it probably would have been.
Did I tell you about this, class? Did I hear about this? You have the really nice manor parlor, and then against the far wall, the grandfather clock, and then the wall opens, and you go back into the bat cave. There's like a giant bat computer, and it was a hands-off presentation, and they actually showed it on the giant bat computer screen, which was kind of...
It was the Batman VR presentation, but in real life.
Right. More interesting from what I've heard. Yes.
Hmm.
I mean, I like Batman VR. I have a kind of a soft spot for that, for the dress-up game. Um, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It was cool. It's not like it wasn't cool, but it's not a
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
No, no. And I mean, maybe the Robin stuff, I didn't play that. Maybe that leads into something more game-like. I don't know. That feels like
I don't
something that should
know.
be like $10 when you get your PlayStation VR, or like a pack-in or something.
Mhm.
Speaking of which, we don't know what the pack-in is going to be. Is there going to be a pack-in?
I would hope so.
You know what should be the pack-in is rigs, because I played that at the PlayStation VR event immediately following the PlayStation conference. And that's
Oh,
actually a really good showpiece for... I mean, it looks spectacularly unexciting when you just watch a video of it, but but
yeah.
playing
As
it
with
is...
most VR, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, playing it is fun, and
Yeah.
it is a unique experience. And it's not really dependent on VR, but it just kind of feels nice once they change. I think I mentioned this on one of the streams. Once they changed the control scheme to control my movement with my head, because it was dual stick controls like a shooter. But then they were like, oh well, we can change it so you can try this out, and I was like, yeah, sure, let's try it. And just like subtly moving my head would sort of like do the head pivot thing. And that once I got that control change, I like immediately became better at the game because it just like felt so natural and good. I want to talk about Tacoma, um, which it was all hands off, but it looks like a really cool follow up to Gone Home. It's instead of sort of following the narrative journey of just one character by finding these artifacts, it's these 6 characters. I think it's 6. That was like the crew of this ship that suddenly had to abandon ship, but ship, I should say, space station. Suddenly had to abandon the station when something went catastrophically wrong. So you're finding these like artifacts of what they left behind, and also recordings of their conversations. But the recordings, they're represented by these sort of silhouettes that are like different colors that sort of like light up when they're the ones talking. So you actually hear their voices, and you can scrub through those conversations back and forth and rewind and stuff. And there'll be several conversations going on at once. So you'll like be listening to these 2 characters talk, and you're like, oh well, while these 2 characters were saying this, there was another conversation going on in this other room. I'm going to go over there and sort of rewind the conversations to hear what they said too. So yeah, you're just sent up there to try to figure out like what went catastrophically wrong, why they had to abandon the station. And I asked like, if they evacuated, why did they need to send anyone up? Why wouldn't they just ask them? And the answer was like, oh well, that's a very good question that we're not talking about. So something terrible probably happened to them. Yeah. Anyway.
I know that game went through some revisions.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've talked about.
They were very open. The Tacoma team, like more so than I think most game developers are. Like I asked about the backlash against Gone Home, and they were very kind of open and refreshingly so about like where they thought the response was coming from. They were like, oh, people just were upset that they didn't think it was like a game or didn't think it was worth $20, and they took that in like much better humor than I think I would. Because I have like no patience for the not a game argument, but they were like, that's what some people think, and that's fine, But it's like this is exactly as much not a game, and I kind of have a theory that people will not say that about this game because it is in space and it has these sci-fi tropes that are familiar as a video game setting, but it's like the same mechanically.
How? It's different. It's a game.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to betray the lie right there.
I am in that conversation as I am whether or not games are art. Like it's just like at this point it's so trite.
Your position is who cares? Yeah. So let's see. We actually have to wrap pretty soon, so I'm trying to pick my battles of what I make time for. I've talked Horizon Zero Dawn Death. It looks real cool. But one other game that I want to talk about that I haven't really talked about, I don't think, on any kind of show format at least, is Agents of Mayhem, which is very Saints Row 2-y. It's absurdity before they got carried away with the absurdity, and I always liked when they got carried away with the absurdity too. I'm not using that as an insult, but it sort of pulls back.
No, it's just different.
Yeah, it pulls back a little bit, so it's a little more recognizable. they sort of pull the camera in closer too. So you're sort of like over the shoulder, Gears style, exploring smaller spaces, not running at hyperspeed across an entire city. But it still has that humor and charm, and I just enjoy those things about it. And they have sort of a.
I love. It's almost.
Uh-oh. I heard.
Am I dying again?
I heard I love and it's almost. I missed the important things of both sentences.
I love almost. No, it looks like a Get Smart kind of video game, and I think that sounds amazing.
Oh, that does sound amazing. It's very comic booky, Saturday morning cartoony inspired.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've got like dumb acronyms for the evil organizations and things like that. You pointed out when I was talking about the game at one point. You pointed out that the enemy is Hatsune Miku. So they are definitely like parodying video games, You've got this like pop star, this virtual artificial intelligence pop star that is the enemy in this part. That's the same sort of style. They sort of just take the piss out of everything. So yeah, that's it for me. I'm done. Anybody else want to mention their games before we sign off here?
Do we want to talk about what it was like to have a booth?
We should talk about what it was like to have a booth. In fact, I promised that on the thread, so we should. It was nice having a home base, I will say that. I've never had that before. Going back to, 4 years that I've been attending this thing, it's always been, I'm carrying my bag around with me all day. It gets heavy, it gets annoying. It was nice having a place we could go, one, to drop stuff off, and two, to just kind of like, there were walls.
Decompress.
We can retreat in here. It was perfect.
Yeah.
And having a streaming show was a lot of fun. It seemed like we got some good response from that. We tweaked IGN a little bit, and they tweaked us back, which was fun. We had some fun inter-site bromancing going on there.
It was fun.
We gave them our award for best rival, and they sort of got a kick out of that. The thing with that award, and I know I'm rambling here, but the thing with that award and with all of these awards is that we wanted it to be in like a spirit of like good fun, and it's like a nice kind of teasing. Like when we gave best dad to Kratos and stuff like that, we didn't want any of this to be like taken in a way that we're mean spirited or insulting them. We wanted to be like kidding around. It's in good spirit. We were complimenting you. And also kind of pointing out why these E3 awards are dumb. So, yeah. What were you guys' thoughts on having a booth?
I loved it. I really stuff that I always enjoy doing that, and I don't get to do it enough. So.
Yeah, I did want to kind of piggyback on that and thank you guys for the opportunity to do some hosting. I think I only hosted one stream, but that's something. I'm very much the classic hermit writer. Like, I just want to stay in my back cave and write words. But it was fun to just get out there and interact with people in a different way. So it was a fun opportunity.
Yeah. And we really enjoyed all the questions from Chatty. We had like the stream, showing the Chatty questions, and so that would sometimes give us like a thing to ask the developer. It was like nice real-time feedback, or two, just like. In our after show, it was a fun, goofing around with the community thing. So I really enjoyed it. These decisions are not up to me because I am just the EIC, not the person with the money. But I would like to have one again if we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I guess we'll see how much they ask for next year. It depends on how many people pull out between now and then, I suppose.
Right. Yeah.
That's I've been thinking about writing a piece on this, and I still might. But let me ask you guys. Given that the 2 to 3 weeks before this year's E3 kind of had most of the announcements made, and E3 was really just a show floor to play the games that were announced, what do you think?
It was League Central, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what was your question? I'm sorry.
What do you think is the state of E3? Because it seems like every year the talk, E3 is dead or dying, picks up.
E3 is dying. I think E3 is transforming. That's my charitable way of putting it. I think it is becoming something else that probably lasts longer and is more spread out. And maybe someday the people who actually really need these big, flashy booth spaces, maybe the number of those is so small that they just consolidate it all in one hall instead of having these two halls. I could see that probably happening within 5 to 10 years. But I don't think it dies. I think it becomes something else. I think it becomes some mixture of public events / all these publishers sort of having their own events that are sort of spread out over a few weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think it goes away. I did
No.
see different reactions. Some people saying it's dying, other people saying like it's so healthy, and I'm like, well, what E3 did you go to? Because when I walked around South Hall, having gone to this for a few years now, it was dead much sooner than I think I've ever seen it. So there was less of a crowd, or maybe they were all just waiting in line for Nintendo. Who knows? But
That too.
there was less of a crowd checking out the sort of the developer space. You know, the West Hall is the console publisher space. You know, like the really big publishers and the console makers, and then South Hall is the sort of secondary developer and publisher space. And I don't know what to make of there just being sort of fewer people interested in that. I don't know if I chalk that up to the show getting smaller or more leaks, or there being this really huge thing in the other hall that everyone wanted to see. It just seemed kind of quiet, more so than usual. Still not quiet because it is E3,
No.
but like quieter.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Like, can you hear me okay, or am I going
Yeah.
in and out?
We got you this time.
Okay. Okay, I just wasted 5 seconds of good time. No, it's not going anywhere. It is going to change. Like I agree with Steve on that because it has to exist in some form. Because again, it's a huge opportunity for retailers to get in and kind of get their hands on what's going to be new and gauge what they need to order in the upcoming years. So it's not going anywhere, but it's going to change. Like it's not going to be as focused.
To be fair to the ESA, they are trying to respond to it by opening it up, making it this public event. This year was sort of like a half step in that direction, but I think they were testing the waters, and I think we're going to continue to see them.
I'm going to be straight honest, like, because I've talked to people, like friends and like, I would.
Oh, darn.
But I always tell them go to PAX. Go to PAX.
Yeah, PAX is
so
really
much more fun.
The proper public show. This was sort of in a roped off area between our hotel and E3, so we would like pass by it, and it was pretty small. I mean, they didn't have a ton of publishers there. But yeah, I think it's changing. And actually, this is to pat myself on the back for being a prophet. Back when last year, when Nintendo, was sort of distancing itself from the traditional media cycle, I said like, hey, this is the path we're going to see everybody going. They are ahead of the curve on this one. Nintendo gets criticized for being behind the curve on a lot of things. They are ahead of the curve here.
It's like your EA plays.
They're setting this trend, and
that'll be happening again.
Yeah, exactly. Like that, we started to see that trend come true this year with EA Play, Activision pulling back. I think we're going to see more and more of that from a lot of these publishers, which is why I think that eventually there might not really be a reason for them to have both halls, because if it's just basically Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo who really need floor space, then yeah, like we don't need two halls for that.
Well, in Shack News, Steve, where's Shack News going to go?
Yeah, we're going to be right there, sandwiched between Sony and Nintendo.
We're going to have our press conference.
Yeah, at that point, the cost for booth space would like shoot back up to premium, I'm sure. But I mean, like even this year we saw like hardware developers and things like that sort of spread around the halls too. So it seems like more people are getting in, and that's kind of nice. As a result of these huge booths like Disney and Activision pulling out, and EA, I guess it was weird not seeing EA as soon as I walked into South Hall because I'm so used to that. Anyway. We need to sign off. I need to actually go because I have other things going on.
I need to eat.
But to give our extremely quick plugs, we have things going up all this week, either catching up on E3 or reacting to E3 or reacting to the very slow news cycle that is going on this week. So keep an eye on Shack News. Yeah. Anything in particular you guys want to plug? David, I know you have a really cool piece going up today, or maybe it's already up.
Yeah, it went up 14 minutes ago by my clock. I thought it was fun. Like I pay far too much attention to Zelda headlines, and so I kind of saw Breath of the Wild's direction coming a mile away, and so I thought it would be fun to write a trip back and kind of look at all of the teases and hints and leaks that kind of painted not a neon sign, but maybe an arrow made out of sticks to what Breath of the Wild ended up being, and so that should be on the site now.
Yeah, the way I described it when we talked about this is, after the fact, everything is very obvious when you look back at the signs that were being given, and I wanted to sort of like see. I was curious to see your take as a huge Zelda fan, like on what all of the things they've been saying about Zelda are, where we were getting an idea of where this was without really having the final picture. So, Cass, anything you want to
Yes.
plug quickly?
I'm actually going to be home next week, which will be refreshing. And I'm planning on putting up that game preservation piece that I've been working on for like 2 months now.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that. So, and I'll just plug again my Mighty Number 9 review, Mighty Number 5 out of 10. I think my hottest burn was that some of the character designs look like someone tried to glue back together a GoBot out of a bag of mixed parts. That was a pretty harsh one, but it's true. So for that burn and more, read my review. And yeah, Dr. Games might be back next week. I need to discuss his schedule with him, but otherwise we'll have probably Cass and David or Asif or some combination thereof. So we will see you then, and until next time, I'm Steve Watts, and we will see you on Chatty.